I'll double back on that coming up in a couple of minutes, too. Bottom of the hour, it's my way, your way, anything goes at 239-1070. The most unfiltered segment in the history of Indy Radio. We'll lob some things your direction, and you guys can say whatever you guys want to say, which you don't get anyplace else. Bottom of the hour here on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 joins us. Should I skydive or not?
Sure, you go ahead and do it. Knock yourself out. Just, make sure you've got your name, stitched inside your underwear or whatever, and kiss the wife goodbye. But
my wife is already checking with Brian Neer, our insurance agent at Farm Bureau right now, about my insurance policy. I guarantee you.
Well, as long as your premiums are paid up, I don't care. Yeah, go ahead. Here, let me pack your shoes.
Yeah, I'm not great with heights either. I'm not bad with them, but I'm not great with them. Like, I've done all the hillbilly stuff, like climbed water towers and fire towers, and rode a motorcycle across the viaduct, which is a big train trestle, kind of like what you saw in Stand By Me. I've done all that stuff before, but I was younger. I'm a little old.
So what you're saying is we're going to see you on one of those Rex Chapman block return videos where you're jumping off of a roof onto your garage and you fall like, 3 foot short and you smack your face.
Well, you know how many things I would have done back in the day had it been caught on video? I may still be in jail for it right now. I mean, there's no, I say this all the time. The people, the Indiana Railroad people hate me mentioning this because it's tulip trestle. And once upon a time, when I was 13 or 14, we rode a motorcycle across it, it never ever, it was, but I would still probably be in prison for that right now. I would imagine.
Yeah.
If caught.
And sometimes you look back and you wonder, how am I still alive?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And then I don't let my kids do a damn thing. Nothing.
Exactly.
I mean, nothing. I go, nope, you're not doing it. Because I'd be like a whining mess right now if I did not have a smartphone at the age of my son. And I say, hey, you don't need it. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, I know where the hell you are all the time. I mean, I don't need it. You don't need it. So you don't get it. So, yeah, that's part of my issue here. Hey, Kenny Moore got paid, and I know this is all a part of the re-sign your own program here. It appeared to be a lot of money, no doubt about that. So they clearly love the dude a great deal.
Yeah, what you're saying is, was it $34 million over?
Mm-hmm.
I think over the 5 years of the deal, which it would include this year, and I think I saw $18 million guaranteed. That's serious, Jack. It's one thing, and I don't want to diminish other ones, but they get Sanchez, Don the punter, and Luke Rhodes, the long snapper, and that's really good. But in the NFL terms, the money was just that money's just sort of so. Even though it made him among the highest paid at the position, Kenny Moore, that's good, Jack, and it's rewarding a player who's done it the right way, been productive, and he's going to be 24 in August. So these are the kind of guys. It's funny, I go back to the Bill Polian days, and people were bitching and moaning, why don't you get involved in free agency? And Polian's response, which we hated at the time, but he was right, is we do. We re-sign our own. And go back in the day when they were always re-signing Clark and Sanders and Tari Glenn and Jeff Saturday and Raheem and Peyton and all these guys, Reggie and Marvin. So it's just your perspective on they're not going out and going crazy with other guys, players. Justin Houston's a good signing and all that, but the way you build a franchise for the long term is draft well or bring in guys that fit what you do, and then when it comes time, you retain them. And we're going to see it's going to get a little more expensive, although I shouldn't say a little more because the Sphere got good money and Kenny Moore. But if they redo Costanzo at some point, T.Y. Hilton's coming up in a year or two. In a couple of years, you got Andrew Luck. The mind boggles on what the market's going to be, or what's the quarterback market going to be when he's ready. So this is the way you do it. And then occasionally you add a Justin Houston or a Funchess because you have a crying need there. But this is the way you build a franchise for the long haul and make it work.
Well, and here's the other thing, Mike. It's tough to argue, really, the blueprint that they've set because they're following it right now, and there's yet to be really any need to argue about anything. I mean, there isn't much of an argument there. I mean, really, like you kind of want to try with Gerald McCoy, but if they view him as past it and not worth the time and the effort or even the amount of money that he ended up getting in Carolina, I kind of understand that. Now, I mean, listen, we're hindsight's 2020. So if D tackle is a spot or defensive line's a spot that he could have helped that he does in Carolina that's necessary here, then I'm sure we'll look back at that. But right now, there's just not that much evidence to say what they're doing, it doesn't work because it all has so far, seemingly, most of it.
Unless you have an agenda, and some people do, they're not going to like whatever you do. The biggest complaints that you can have, the most legitimate complaints you can have, are Terrell Basham, third-round pick in 17, gone. Zach Banner, a fourth-round pick, I guess. I mean, when you get too far down, I don't worry about it.
Yeah, you can't because you get. I mean, Allen now, and that was a trade asset you got for the trade of Dwayne Allen too. So,
right.
Yeah.
But then you've got Quincy Wilson, and Quincy needs to. If you want to shout out Quincy Wilson, which you hope they don't, I think he finally showed signs of really growing into what they anticipate. But those are really your complaints. Ryan Grant last year, I guess. I don't know. I mean, he didn't break the bank.
Well, and I have been pointed in my criticism at the way they've addressed wide receiver. And I still say this. I think I was justified in it midway through last year, and then Dontrell Emmett came in and kind of settled things down. But, I mean, I still think the argument in the past regarding wide receiver and how necessary that it is was justified at the beginning of last season. But
that goes back to the previous GM.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they sort of set the tone. When Donnie Avery is your best, free agent wide receiver, and that was in 2012. And, they've tried and tried. It's kind of like what they used to do with the offensive line and center. They tried and tried and tried. It's not that they didn't address it. It's that they were wrong. So, that's the way they're doing things is, and again, you can argue with it that it's good or bad or whatever, or you want to do something different. It's simply, it takes patience by the fan base and as we all in the media. And both of those areas are not known for patience. I'll include myself in there. You want something done right away. Well, if you're going to build the roster the right way, and again, you go back to polling, it took time, and then at some point it bears fruit. So we'll see how this works, and I just like the way this roster is built. There's going to be some interesting competition in camp. There's going to be some very difficult roster cuts come the end of August. And this is a team that's got a really, really good mix of veterans with the Sherrods and Houstons and people like that. But, boy, the bulk of this roster is young. It's the 24, 25-year-old guys. And Luck is going to turn, which is crazy. Luck and T.Y. turned 30 this year. That's just crazy. But, people can say, well, you haven't maximized Luck's career, which is true. You haven't because you've not gotten the roster good enough, quick enough with Luck. He's still got, 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, maybe quality years to play. So it's not like the window's closing on Andrew Luck at all. So this is the way you built the roster, and adding a few guys here and there, it just, without sounding homerish, the arrow is simply pointing up for this franchise. It is.
So Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Clearly, we would be more concerned about Luck's cap situation had we not gone through what we went through the past year plus, right?
Yeah. All of a sudden. Now, listen, we talked last week. It's not a good thing when your quarterback doesn't practice. It is not. You can't spin it that it is. But when you've been through what size football is the guy throwing and when's he throwing it? Is he going from Nerf to high school to whatever? Yeah, and I'm telling you, if there was any, maybe he can practice this week, and we'll see. And then Kevin Durant goes out and blows his Achilles. They said, no, we're okay. Just let that puppy rest until late July. So, yeah, it's amazing what perspective does to you when you've gone through an off season of is he throwing or when can he throw to a calf injury, and hey, I'm trusting that's all it is. We talked to him to Luck on Tuesday, and he said, "Yeah, I'll be ready for training camp." So now, if we get there in late July and it's still a nagging calf injury, then we have an issue. But I don't believe that at all.
Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 is with us. Jim Irsay turned 60 today.
Hard to believe, huh?
Yeah, you have. You've been here through the entirety. They got here when I was 14. You've been covering them since they got here back in '84. Where is Jim's rank as far as NFL owners are concerned, in your opinion?
Probably not high enough, and here we are again trying to be defensive of the indie market. He has his quirks. We all know that, but when it comes to being committed to well, it's good. I didn't really pause too much there. Committed to putting a championship team on the field. I don't know who has more of a gung ho approach. The craziest thing, the dynamic we have here in Indy, is we have an owner that wants to spend money. He wants to spend, and the GM is saying, "No, it's okay. Let's not go that high on Gerald McCoy or whoever." So I just think that anyone who complains about Jim Irsay as an owner, as just simply an owner, they've got an axe to grind again, or they keep referring to. I've seen guys still refer to him as Bob Irsay. I mean, come on. So no, as far as ownership in doing what it takes as an organization, whether it's having, renovating the building, the locker room and the weight room and all that stuff, which is enormous as far as getting your team ready, or doing what it takes to bring in the right management people and the right players. I just don't know who is more committed to doing that than he is. And I hope the indie market, the fan base, understands that while there's a lot of, news on the Ringo Starr's drum set or whatever, all those stuff he collects. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But as far as building a team and putting a championship and wanting another Lombardi trophy, I don't know who's more committed than Jim Irsay to doing that.
What's the most important decision he's ever made here?
Peyton? I mean,
is it bringing Bill in that ultimately led to Peyton?
Yeah.
Or is it Peyton moving on past Peyton?
Ooh, but you had to go back to Peyton first, or you never have moved on from.
Yeah, well, I mean, Peyton's always top of the list, regardless. But
probably bringing Polian in and sort of seeding decisions. The day-to-day decisions to Bill Polian. That's got to be hard to do because Jim Irsay, coming through the ranks and being a GM, he was so intent on making the decisions and all that, but he knew that to be a good owner, the good owners put the right people in place and allowed them to do their job. So it probably all, if you wanted to take it back to what's the nexus, it's Bill Polian coming in, and then it's Jim Irsay having input on things, certainly with Peyton Manning, certainly. And then how it goes, and then, again, making the decision to let Peyton go. Was that right or wrong at the time? Again, Peyton couldn't throw a football. He couldn't throw a football at the time, and he was due a $28 million bonus. And then, oh, by the way, you've got Andrew Luck sitting there. So, and to this day, I give Jim Irsay all the credit, 90% of the credit for bringing Luck in here, because I think that was he knew what he had, and the staff was on board with it. So it's a really good question when you start saying the most important decisions, but everything goes back to Peyton, which then, like you say, goes back to Polian, because as we've talked about, Bill Polian's first two draft picks were Peyton Manning and Edgerrin James, not Ryan Leaf and Ricky Williams. So had it been the other way around, there's probably no Lucas Oil Stadium.
Now, and we'll factor in with this question I'm about to ask the fact that he did run the team from a decision-making general manager standpoint for a number of years. What's the worst decision he's ever made?
Wow, I needed time to study that one. The one that jumps in my mind is Fred Young. Fred Young with two D's in Fred. We go to his two D's for one for each first-round pick they gave up. Didn't work. Didn't work at all. He wasn't a good fit. He was primarily like a special teams great player, and then he came here and he had a hip injury. I'm sure there's other ones that would jump out up with that. On the same thing.
He's going to hate it out here because he's probably listening right now. What about the Jeff George trade?
Yeah. As much as it made,
he was going after it at the time, and that's been something that he has done. But he just realized that going after it would have been better served by actual football people or more knowledgeable football people going after it, as he came to realize as he got older. Right?
Well, and the problem is to get Jeff George, they got rid of some of their best players.
They did.
So this wasn't Peyton Manning coming in and having Tarek Glenn and Adam Meadows and Marshall Faulk and Marvin Harrison and Pollard. This was Jeff George coming in with no Chris Hinton and no Andre Rison, and it just didn't work from the start. And then they tried to blend Jeff George and Eric Dickerson together, and boy, that didn't work. Jeff didn't have the right coaching staff around him. He just didn't. He needed a strong hand. So now, would have things been different if they had better people around him, including coaches and players, maybe? But it'd be really interesting to go back and look at the moves. I like a mulligan on that one, sir, and. But again, Eric Dickerson, which didn't work in the long run, in '87, it was the right move. It was costly, but it gave the franchise a presence, which it didn't have. And for a couple of years, it sort of worked, and then when it didn't work, it went in the crapper real quick.
It did. I mean, the Corriat Albers draft, Trev Albert draft, and yeah. I mean, but again, since Jimmy's been owner since 97 or whatever it's been, I mean, the bar has been set to where 10-6 in a wild card isn't good enough. It's not good enough, and it shouldn't be. We've talked again about expectations. They should be off the charts. I mean, I'm not going to say they're the third best team in the league like some of these off-season rankings have. But I could argue, without being Mr. Homer, I can argue that this team's in pretty good shape. Almost any position. Yep.
And it wouldn't be that I'm making stuff up. It's no. Look at the facts, doggone it. This is where they are. And if, barring injury to a significant player or players, this team should be in the hunt in December. And Jimmy's talked about, well, you get that first round bye or home field and all that. I'm not sure why this team shouldn't expect that and have serious aspirations for that, because pieces are in place. There's no what's the glaring weakness on this team? There just isn't one.
I think non-Manning division here, and where I think Manning is as far as everything around here, but non-Manning division, stepping in, taking control of the situation when Fubar was going down with the whole coaching situation, reaching out. And listen, we both know this. We both know that he got the advice of people he trusted regarding Frank Reich. I think that's going to go down as one of the biggest, boldest, and the most accurate decisions we've ever seen around here. And that's on him. That's him. That was him.
And it's one that, had things played out the way they wanted, Frank Reich would be somewhere else or still be a pastor somewhere. Because, again, remember, with the guy's name we won't mention, who had agreed to be the coach here, and then he, thumbed his nose at him. Had that gone down, that's
an image breaker. That's everything. You don't get up easily off the mat like they did after that fiasco. You just don't.
And the one thing that Chris Ballard admitted, which he didn't have to do, is Frank White, he was not on their first level of their first round of talks. It's not like they talked with Frank and other guys, and then they
He was eighth. He wasn't in the top 7, according to Chris.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, many times, the moves that don't happen are the best moves that happen to your franchise. So again, it worked out. It's worked out for Jim Irsay. We always joke about making, a pact with the football gods where things had to fall in place for Peyton to be a Colt. Things had to fall in place for Luck to be a Colt. Things had to fall in place for Frank Reich to be a Colt. So it's sometimes you need to be good, but sometimes you just got to be lucky, and you can't plan on things working out to where, because again, if Jim Harbaugh doesn't get his butt kicked in Minnesota on that last game in 1997, they're not in position to get Peyton Manning. They're not. They beat the Vikings, and then they're picking 4th or 5th and whatever. And if they make the change and win a few more games in 2011, then they don't get luck. So it does take some fortune on your part. And it's again, I go back to, it could have been Ryan Leaf and Ricky Williams.
Hey, I got one for you. It could have been Peyton Manning and John Gruden too. I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it very could have. I mean, if Manning would have been ready, then that's what you might be looking at right now. And there's so much truth to that.
That's why you go back and look, and things work out for a reason, and sometimes you don't understand the reasons. But I keep looking at how different things could have been if.
I completely.
Here we are, and again, this bodes to be a good year, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yep, no doubt about that. No, that's a good. I just thought about that because he turned 60 and traced back the footsteps of what has been a path, especially for you covering this team since 1984. I mean, there have been some moments. No question.
The great Jim Irsay moment is when he goes back. This is when we're in Anderson for training camp, and he'd sit there and talk, and he goes back and he remembers starting. This is the guy that started picking up jocks and dirty towels in the locker room. That's what he did. And one of his best stories is he's having lunch wherever the Baltimore Colts were having camp in Denver or somewhere, Golden, Colorado. I don't know where it was. Somewhere in Colorado. He sits down and somebody taps him on the shoulder and says, "Hey, move your ass." And it was John Unitas. And Jimmy had sat in Unitas' chair. So this, he knows everything about every aspect of running a team.
Yeah.
And the one thing he learned, some things he learned was he learned from his dad's mistakes, and there were many, but he also learned that when you're an owner, put the right people in place and let them do their job, barring them ruining or marring the reputation or your franchise. And that's kind of what he did with Polian. It's what he's going to do with Chris Ballard. And, the Ryan Grigson thing could have and should have worked better, I guess. But by and large, he's done a really good job of letting his people do their job without too much intervention.
Yeah, but the Grigson thing, that's the last decision he wanted to make too. He didn't want to go there, but that was the advice that he got, and he went with it. He had to, absolutely. I tell you what,
he probably stuck with it longer than he should have.
No question.
That shows you that he didn't want to do it.
Always a pleasure, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Talk to you later.
So Mike Chappell, CBS 4 and Fox 59.